return text the data back to me.
All right, so before lunch, we got our single item. Hold the item ID from the URL, made the request to the server, update the Redux state, and then display our information. As I started to talk about right before lunch, one problem you run into with Redux is the data persists. Even when when you're routing, moving around your app, the state never clears itself. So you'll end up with a bunch of stuff in state, which not always necessarily a problem, but for stuff like this, where you go away and then come back, you could briefly see the older data there before the server request finishes. Okay? And then depending on how long your request takes, this can become more and more pronounced. So usually what you want to do is when you leave a component that's using a particular piece of state, especially if it's the only component that's using it, you want to clear it. Now, if you're using that information in other places, you might not want to clear it. So it's kind of on a case-by-case basis if you need to clear it or want to clear it. And it's one of those things I wouldn't worry about it until you notice it being an issue. Then start thinking about, I should probably clear this here so I don't see the old data when I come back. So to clear the state, it's done in the same way that we update the state. We make an action creator. The action creator goes to the reducer, and then we tell the reducer how to update the state. So whenever we're doing a new action, we always start with a new type first. So we'll add a new type in the types file. So inside of inside the actions folder, types.js, we'll say clear single item. Okay, so now we have our type. Now all we have to do is create an action creator. So we could call a function and it'll dispatch that action and update our state however we tell it to. So over in actions, we'll go to actions index. Make a new action creator. We'll say export default, not export default, export function, clear single item. We don't need any data passed in. And we just need to return an object with a type property set to types dot clear single item. That's it. We don't need to do anything special. All we're doing is clearing the state. So we just need an action to tell it to clear. Okay, so very simple action creator. Once we have our action creator, we could go handle this type in our reducer now. Everybody good here? Okay. All good? Everybody good? All right, so now we'll jump over to the list reducer inside the reducers folder. And we'll make a new case. Go away. There we go. So case for types dot clear single item. Okay. Want to destructure the state, so we only affect the things that we intend to. And in this case, we just want to set single back to an empty object. All good? All right, so now that we have our action creator that dispatches an action that has a type of clear single item. Over in the reducer, we have our case for our single item type or clear single item type. And then we're updating the state and we're deleting anything that was in the single property by resetting it to an empty object. So now to use this, we'll jump back over to single item. We need to import the action type, or the action creator, sorry. So clear single item. We need to plug it into Redux via connect. So now that we've imported clear single item at the top, we'll go down to the bottom and add it to our second argument object here. We'll say clear single item is equal to clear single item. All right, so now everything's all connected together, all plugged in. Now all you have to do is now we use it. But where do we use it? When do we want to clear the data? We don't want to clear it when it mounts, because that's when we're getting the data, so we don't want to clear it then. Huh? Unmount. So when the component's about to unmount, we say clear the data. So up in our class, we'll do another lifecycle method, and we'll use component will unmount. And then it will say this dot props dot clear single item, and we'll call it. So now whenever we leave this page, that'll get called, the state will get cleared, and that way next time we come back, it'll start with nothing again. It'll call the server and get the data. If you're using something like a spinner or loading message, you can also set it back to like null. That way it knows next time you come back to this page to display the loading message or spinner or whatever again. Okay, it's kind of just a way to like reset the component back. Normally when you're using regular state inside of a component, as soon as the component unmounts, all that component state gets wiped out automatically. With Redux, as long as the app is running, no matter what view you're looking at, all your state that you've gathered from looking at your different views is going to always be there until the page refreshes or something like that. But until that point, your Redux state is holding all that information, which is the upside to Redux, because that's the whole point, is you want it to hold on to information so you can use it in multiple places. But the downside is sometimes you got to do a little cleanup so you don't get the wrong data showing up in the wrong places till the new data loads. So if we test this, we have I can add an item, we go back, and then we don't get the blank. It's blank, and then it has the data. We don't see the old data for half a millisecond. I said it's kind of hard to tell with this app the true benefit of it. But if your server requests are taking longer, it's much, much more noticeable. And like I said, I wouldn't necessarily in the beginning worry about pre-thinking about when you should be clearing data. Just when you see that it's becoming an issue of old data persisting where you don't want it to, then you're like, okay, well, I need to clear this data. And then as you do this more and build more applications and stuff, you'll have a better idea of, as you're building it, okay, this data is going to need cleared here, this data is going to need cleared here. All right, one more thing I want to do on this is I want to toggle the item's completeness. So we want to add a button that when we click it, it will mark the item as complete. But before we can do that, we need to be able to display the information about the item being complete or not. Is everybody with me, or does anybody need a second, need help? Everyone's good?
Yes.
All right, so if we look at our console log from our single item, if we look at our actual item, it has complete false. And then there's a way we could change that by calling the server to be true. So if it's false, we want it to say one thing, and if it's true, we want it to say another thing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another H4, just so it's nice and clear. I'm going to do curly brackets. I'm going to say item dot complete. I'm going to use a ternary. If complete is true, we'll say item has been completed. Else, if item.complete is false, we want it to say item not complete. So now when we look at our item, we should see item not complete. Okay, because none of our items have been completed yet because we haven't implemented that part of the app yet. Unless you did do that on your other app, then you might have some complete items. And then I could do something similar for if I want to add some text color based on whether the item's complete or not as well. So to try and keep this all on the same page, on the same window without it going off the edge, I'm going to break this up into a couple lines. And then on my H4, I'm going to add a class name, use curly brackets, and do pretty much the same thing. I'll say item dot complete. If the item is complete, I want it to be green dash text. And we'll say text. Actually, we'll say green text. Else. Red dash text. And there's one class that I want to always be on here. I always want the darken2 class on here. So I kind of screwed myself initially, but what we could do is we could highlight all this that we just wrote. And just cut it out, use backticks, $ curly brackets inside of the string, paste that ternary back in there. And then it doesn't matter if it's before or after, the order of class names never matters. And I'm going to say darken-2. All right, it'll either be green text, darken-2, or red text, darken-2. Okay, darken-2 will be there no matter what. These will switch based on whether the item is complete or not. The same way that this message will switch based on whether the item is complete or not. This is how you, essentially, how you add and remove classes in React. You use some piece of information to determine at render time which class to add. Now, this could be controlled by state. It could be controlled by props that are passed into you. It could be controlled by the Redux state. It could just be, like in this case, just based on the information that's given to us from the server. We're deciding what classes and what text to display. So if we save that, we should see item not complete, and it should be red, a dark red. So it should look something like that. Okay. Anybody have any trouble with that? Anybody need help? Or just need a second? Everybody got the ternaries working okay? Or for as much as we could tell so far? The real truth will come out when we actually toggle it. All right, so at the bottom, down here, I'm not going to do anything too fancy. I'm just going to add a button. And I want the button to say different stuff depending on if the item is complete or not. So kind of the same exact principle. Curly brackets, item dot complete. So if it is complete, we'll say incomplete. What do we want it to say? Remove complete. I don't know. You can make it say whatever you want. My mind's blanking out on anything good to say right now. And then we can make it say complete item if it's not complete. So if it's already not complete, the button should read complete item so they can complete the item. If it's already been completed, then they can remove the completeness from it. And then we can do the same thing with the button's color. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to break it up on a couple different lines just so you guys can see everything. Class name equals curly brackets, backticks. Give it a class a button that I always want on there, and then item dot complete question mark. If the item is complete, it'll say remove complete. So we probably want that to be like red. Otherwise, green. Now, one downside to doing it the way we're doing it right now. If we had like one or two ternaries for the same decision, okay, not so bad. But we're checking the same thing in 4 different places. This is like having 4 separate if statements for the exact same check. Okay? Probably not the end of the world. Probably not going to necessarily be noticeable. But you do got to kind of be careful getting a little carried away like this. In this setting, like I said, it's going to happen so fast, it's not going to really matter. But there are different ways you can handle that. You can do one check up at the top that sets all these values for you. Instead of doing 4 separate checks for the same data. Let's see what we have here. Okay, so item is not complete. There's a green button asking us to complete the item. Doesn't do anything yet because we haven't told it to do anything yet. But it is there ready to go. Anybody still need a second with this? All good? All right, so what we want to do now is we want to make the functionality so we can call the server and toggle this item's completeness. Whichever item we're looking at, we want to be able to click the button and it change whether it's actually complete or not. So to do this, back to the whole Redux cycle thing. First place we're going to go is we're going to define a new type. So I'm going to go to my types file that is located in the actions folder. Inside of actions, types.js. And I'm going to add a new type of toggle underscore complete. Okay, everybody got the type? All right, then we'll make a new action creator for our new type. So we'll jump over to the action index file. We'll add yet another action creator. So we'll say export function toggle complete. Now, in order to toggle an item's completeness, we need some way to identify that item. We need something that the server can use to figure out which item we're trying to toggle. What piece of data do you think that would be?
The ID.
The item's ID. So we need to pass in the item's ID. And then the rest of this is going to look exactly like all the other ones. We're going to say const response equals axios. One difference here is we're going to do dot put backticks, $ curly brackets, space URL, / totos, / a lot of you missed this last time. Make sure you have that / there. And then $ curly brackets, the ID that was passed in, and then tack on our API key to the end. And then we return our action. Our action will be types dot toggle complete with a payload of our response. All right, now we've got our action creator. We got to go to the next step in the cycle, which is the reducer. So we're going to get some kind of response back from the server. And just like before, you may or may not know exactly what response you're going to get back from the server. And if you haven't console logged it already, don't just assume you know what it is. You can never trust those backend people with whatever they say they're sending you. You always got to double check it. So what we'll do is we'll go to the reducer. Does anybody need another amount of air? Everyone's all good? The action creator. So now we'll jump back over to the list reducer. We'll add yet another case for our new type. Types dot toggle complete. And then we'll console.log toggle complete action and console log the action. And then for now, we'll just return state. That way, when we click the button, we can see what we're actually getting back from the server. Everybody good with the reducer? All right, final step is to actually use this now that we have it. Okay, so we're going to jump back over to single item, our component. We're now going to import our new action creator. So we'll just add on to this import statement. So we'll say toggle complete. Okay, so that's that function we made. Now that we have access to it here, we need to plug it into Redux by adding it into Connect. So we'll scroll down to the bottom. And we'll add it into our action creator object here. Say toggle complete is equal to toggle complete. And then finally, where we're deconstructing props, we could pull off our toggle complete from props. And then on our button, we could add an on click. Pass it an anonymous function. And say toggle complete. Whoa, stop it. Toggle complete. And we want to call it. Now we have to pass it the ID, so we need the ID. And if we remember, the ID is actually part of props. So we could come back up to props, and we could pull off match, and from match, we could pull off params. And then down in toggle complete, we could say params, whatever. Params, in my case, it's dot item ID. If you named yours a little different, make note, of whatever yours is. So params dot item ID. Okay, that will give us our items ID. Pass into the function, make the request to the server. Then the server knows which item we're trying to update. It will make it from true to false or from false to true. And then send us something back, which we're about to figure out what it sends back to us. So let's take a look. So click, you should get a console log. Here's our action. And if we look in the payload, data, to-do, notice we get our to-do item back. Now complete is true. There's even a completed timestamp for when it was completed. Everything else is pretty much the exact same, but it did change this. And even to verify that, we could refresh the page. Okay, and then its item has been completed, and the button is now red with the different text inside of it. But what we want to do is we want it to update without us having to refresh the page. But I'll wait a second, make sure everybody has that working. If anybody needs help, please let me know. Does anybody need help? Yep. You gotta do an anonymous function first.
Oh, anonymous.
Yeah. Yep. So you can leave that there. So let's go to the beginning, and then parentheses, and then call the function, and then you still need to pass it the ID. So you need to do match colon params, and then params dot item. We'll try that out. Let me know how it turns out. What do we got over here? You've got /URL. Index tables. / Right after the to-dos before the dollar sign. There you go. Alright, try clicking it. And refresh the page. Cool. All good. Everybody else?
You get how it's actually toggling. No, I get that. Like, which part is doing that? Like this method here, we're doing it. I think we still. Oh, but what's it do?
There you go. You need shift function. All good. Anybody else?
For what?
No, not necessarily.
We're looking at this.
So, refresh the page.
Whoa.
So it looks like it's working. Okay. Yeah, we haven't fixed that part yet.
Yeah.
Right on the mic.
I just don't. I mean, mine's working, but I don't get how it's actually toggling complete from false to true. Like, what do we do to make it do that? Is the dot put? Or
Yeah.
what does dot put do?
Whatever you tell the server to have it do. It's for updating.
Or all we did was pass in the API.
It's making a server. It's making a server request. The server's changing it.
Okay.
So really quick, guys. Axios.put. It's just another request method. Okay. It's just in the form of a RESTful API. Put and patch are used for updating. Okay. So we're just making a request to the server. We're passing it the ID. The server knows when it gets a request from this URL via put method, it knows that we're trying to toggle complete. Okay. That's the way the code was written on the server side. So the server uses that ID, tries to find an item by that ID and associated with our API key. If it finds the item with that ID and our API key, it will look at its complete value and it will turn it to the opposite of whatever it current is, resave it to the database, and then it sends us that item after it's been changed.
Okay, so it's on the server side that it actually.
The server's doing all of that, yes. Which is where you'd want to do it. You can't just toggle it here because then the server wouldn't know.
Sure.
Okay? And then the server is ultimately when we get the response from the server, it is sending us back our item, but now it's doing it with the updated information. So it was true, now it's false. So it's sending us the most up-to-date information. So we could use this information to update our state again. That way we'll actually get live feedback, because right now we have to refresh the page to see the difference, because we have to reload the data. But the data is actually being given to us, so we could use this data to update our Redux state. So it's on payload.data.todo, and that's all of our to-do data. So in our list reducer, instead of just returning state here, we'll make a new state, so a new object, deconstruct the original state, and then we're going to change the single property to be equal to action dot payload dot data dot todo, no S. Because it's just one item. All right, so that will set our new to-do data, our updated to-do data into our state, which will then be given to our component via props. And since our props changed, our component will re-render. And we should get instant feedback, or pretty close to instant feedback, after we click our button to toggle completeness. So click. The slight delay, but fairly fast. Okay. Any other questions about any of this? Yes.
Can you open up a single item? Automate the CID.
What are you trying to see?
Oh, okay. And mine had something else.
It's all coming from the same place, so it should be the same.
Okay, I just wanted to double check. Thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Guys, please. Any questions? Easy as cake, right?
No, sure.
I think it's easy as pie. No, I think whatever. Neither is easy if you don't know how to cook. So probably. All right. So let's go ahead and add commit this. Get it merged to our master. We'll take a little quick break, and then when we come back, we'll dive headfirst into middleware. So going to add commit. Completed a single item view. And toggle complete. And then push. And after I push, I'm going to use this URL it gives me. I'm not a fan of this URL they throw at you. And that should take us right to the place to open a pull request. Single item view into master. If you want to do it the more manual way, you just go to your Redux repo, create new pull request, single item view to master. Single item view with toggle complete. Completed. All right, create the pull request, do a quick review of the files changed. I think I left some console logs. I did. I'm going to go ahead and clean up the console logs really quick. You can or cannot. It's up to you.
We will.
What file was that in? It is in single item components. Oh, and there's one here too. Look at that. Yeah, list reducer has one, and single item has one. And find console.log. Looks like you got all of them. Cool.
Did you take the one out of save item?
I think so. Yeah, we don't want any. So if you have any anywhere, you can just delete all of them. I highly recommend, as you're building any project, clean up your console logs after yourself. Okay? There's no reason to save them. If you absolutely, hopefully whatever you're working on where you needed the console log, you don't need it anymore. So delete the console log. The good thing about coding is you can always change it. You can always put a console log back in there if you need it later. But if you just keep letting them build up, it slows down your app a lot. Console logs are extremely intensive to use. And B, you end up with so many freaking console logs. I'm sure you guys have already experienced this, where it's hard to see which one you're looking for, even with naming them. And then on top of that, some people don't even name them properly or put text in them. So you've got all this data in the console, and you have no idea what you're looking at. So git add git commit removed console.logs, and then push again. All right, and then we can see on GitHub, it tells us we need to refresh the page. So we will do that. You can also click where it says refresh. It'll refresh for you, or you can refresh it over here. I'm sure you guys know how to refresh a page at this point, hopefully. Probably knew how to refresh a page before you came here. Maybe. All right, looks good. So we'll go ahead and merge it. Delete the branch. And then update locally. So git checkout master, git pull, and then delete the branch, git branch dash d single item view. All good. All right, so that's all up to date. We should be on our master branch. And that is pretty much it for this project. I would encourage you guys to try and add in the delete functionality. That's about all we have left, other than maybe cleaning up the way it looks a little bit. You could also, on when it's displaying the items, you could display like the done ones with the check mark or something next to them, so you can tell which ones have been completed. A lot of little fun stuff you can do with it. Doing the delete functionality would help you, make another request to the server. So definitely worth trying. It's done in the exact same way you do everything else. All the other network requests we made. If you do want to try the delete functionality and you forgot, remember it's the same URL we call to get the item or toggle complete. Instead of using get or put, though, you use Axio stop delete. Yeah. All right. That is it for this video series as well, in case you're watching the videos.